Hello, all you scaredy cats and kittens, and welcome to the Two Scaredy Cats podcast, where we talk about all things strange, unusual, and paranormal. We're your hostess with the mostest. I'm Stacy, and unfortunately, Kara's not with us this week. She is off jet-setting to another convention. I believe she's heading to Sandusky, Ohio this weekend for the big convention there. And then she's heading to Canada for YetiCon next week. So it's just me this week, but that's okay, because I have a really interesting story to tell you about this week. But before we get into all that, I just wanted to thank everybody for listening to our little podcast here and thanking you for hanging out with us today. First off, though, I wanted to see if anybody has heard about the government has released more information about UFOs and aliens recently. And they've been talking that there are apparently now 4 types of aliens that are out there. And I thought it would be interesting if I went ahead and told you about the 4 different types of aliens that they are claiming are out there now. So we have the ones that we're all familiar with, the grays, as they like to call them. They're the small, hairless humanoids with the large eyes. And they're basically associated with the Roswell incident that happened in 1947. And then we have the Nordics, which are these human-sized, highly human-like beings that physically resemble Northern Europeans. And then we have what they like to call reptilians, which are human-sized, and they're upright walking, but they're these scale-covered entities with lizard-like features. And then lastly, we have the insectoids, which I've never heard of these, and honestly, I was just happier thinking about the little gray aliens that, we've seen in all the movies and TV shows over the years. The insectoids are bug-like humanoids, and they're often compared to be looking like a praying mantis. Now, these are just what people have been coming out of from the government about, the types of aliens that have been pulled off some of the spacecraft that they have discovered over the years. But yeah, that's pretty crazy that there's 4 types. I only thought there was 1 type. I didn't realize we had a bunch of other types. Now, the reptilian one, though, I don't know about anybody else, but I've heard a lot about that. People claiming to be, reptilian in nature, and that, the government's being run by reptile aliens or whatever. And speaking of reptile aliens, did anybody happen to catch the crazy story? It was all over the internet last week, or I guess earlier this week. There was a gentleman that was in the government, and he was talking about, I forget what he was talking about, but anyway, when people were watching the video, they noticed that down by his neck, it looked like he had a mask on, and it was weird. It was like you could tell that, he was wearing a mask to hide his face or something weird. And people were just everybody all over the internet, they were all speculating that he's like a reptilian alien and that he was hiding his face to make him look more human so we wouldn't be scared or whatever. But I thought that was kind of crazy. But you have to check out the footage. I'll have to find some and post it on our Instagram page so you can see what I'm talking about. But that was pretty crazy that was circulating around on the internet, along with the more stuff getting released from the government about the aliens situation and, the different types of aliens that we apparently now have running around out there that we got to watch out for. But anyway, so for today, I'm going to be talking about the story of the Kraft family from Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Now, this is a pretty crazy story, so let's go ahead and get into it today. So deep in the Smokey Mountains near Gatlinburg, Tennessee, locals whisper about a family so terrifying that even today people refuse to say their name after dark. The Kraft family. Now, they were led by former Confederate Colonel Simon Kraft, and the family allegedly survived a brutal winter by murdering and eating stranded guests trapped inside their mountain mansion, But according to legend, the cannibalism did not stop there. For generations, stories spread about disappearances, ghostly screams in the woods, and spooky figures stalking the mountains at night. Were the crafts simply desperate survivors, or did something evil take root inside the family? So imagine driving through the Smoky Mountains late at night. Fog covers the road, your GPS loses its signal, and you spot an old mansion hidden deep in the trees. Then, you smell meat cooking. A man opens the door and smiles, and suddenly you remember the story locals warned you about. Never accept dinner from the Craft family. The legend begins after the Civil War with a man named Simon J. Craft, a Confederate officer who supposedly received land in the Smoky Mountains near Gatlinburg, Tennessee. According to the folklore, Craft was known during the war for being disturbingly violent and emotionally detached. Some stories even claim soldiers nicknamed him Craft the Carnivore. He eventually built a massive estate deep in the wilderness called Craft Manor, and that's where the nightmare begins. One winter, Simon and his family invited wealthy guests to the manor for a celebration, but then a devastating blizzard trapped everyone inside for months. Food ran out, animals disappeared, the roads became impassable, and according to the legend, Simon made a horrifying decision. The guests would become food. The most chilling part of the story comes from an alleged deathbed confession by a man of the name Colonel Douglas McVicker. According to the tale, Simon convinced the others that murder and cannibalism were the only way to survive. Guests were allegedly killed one by one while the blizzard raged outside. And here's where the legend gets very disturbing. The story claims the family did not just survive off of human flesh. They developed a taste for it. Locals began whispering that the Craft family continued holding secret feasts long after the winter ended. Travelers allegedly disappeared near the property. Hunters reported hearing screams in the woods, and some claimed they saw lantern lights moving through the mountains late at night. Now this is where things shift from horrifying to supernatural. People in Gatlinburg have told stories about strange activity connected to the old Craft property. Visitors have allegedly reported hearing chains dragging through the woods, hearing phantom screams during snowstorms, seeing shadow figures watching them from tree lines, and the smell of rotting meat appearing out of nowhere. Some paranormal investigators even claim the area around the alleged manor site feels wrong, like the forest itself is avoiding something. Whether true or not, Gatlinburg and the Smoky Mountains are packed with ghost stories and Appalachian legends involving restless spirits, disappearances, and haunted wilderness trails. Now, we found one story online that sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. A man claiming to be a former park maintenance worker near Gatlinburg shared an experience from the late 1990s. According to his account, he was driving alone near an old abandoned trail outside of Gatlinburg during a snowstorm when he saw lights deeper in the woods. At first he assumed it was campers, but then he noticed something strange. The lights weren't moving normally. They looked like lanterns, almost floating. He claimed he heard voices echoing through the trees, not talking, but laughing. Then he smelled something, sweet and rotten, like burned meat. As he approached the edge of the woods, he saw what appeared to be several people standing motionless between the trees wearing dark, old-fashioned clothing. One of them was holding looked like a butcher knife. The man said the figure suddenly turned toward him and all at once, and then his truck died. No lights, no radio, nothing. He locked the doors and tried restarting the engine while hearing footsteps crunching in the snow outside the vehicle coming closer and closer. Then came 3 slow knocks on the driver's side window. He refused to look. When the truck finally restarted, he sped away. The next day he returned with friends to see if there were footprints. There were none. Only drag marks in the snow leading into the forest. Now, is this story real? We honestly don't know. But locals online have connected stories like this to the old Craft family legend for years. So, did Simon Craft actually exist? That's where things get murky. There's no confirmed historical evidence proving the murders happened exactly as described. Most researchers consider it Appalachian horror folklore rather than a documented history. But that hasn't stopped the legend from spreading through Gatlinburg for decades. In fact, the story became so famous that it inspired haunted attractions and escape room experiences in Tennessee centered around the Craft family cannibal legend. And honestly, sometimes legends survive because somewhere deep underneath them, there's a tiny piece of truth. So next time you visit the Smoky Mountains and someone invites you to dinner, maybe ask what's on the menu first. And if you ever have experienced something paranormal in Gatlinburg, the Smokies, or anywhere deep Appalachia, send us your stories because we might feature it in a future episode. So that's pretty creepy about the Kraft family. The reason why I wanted to share this tale today is because me and my husband are going to the Smoky Mountains to stay in a cabin for a week, and I thought it was interesting when I came across this when I was trying to find a topic to talk about today for our podcast. So I will keep my eyes peeled for you all and let you know if I see or hear any of the things that I talked about in our story today about, people seeing like apparitions and shadow figures and hearing chains in the woods and stuff like that. We are going to be near Ski Mountain Lodge up near Gatlinburg, so I don't think I'm near the old Kraft property, but I'm not 1,000% sure. But anyway, lots of strange things happen in the Smoky Mountains because it's part of the Appalachian chain, and we hear about all kinds of scary and crazy things happening over in that area. So anyway, if you enjoyed our story today, please make sure to give us a like and follow. You can find us anywhere that you stream your podcast on, from Spotify to Apple Podcast and any other streaming service you like to use. We truly appreciate everybody who listens to our podcast, and we will be back again in 2 weeks for another exciting episode. And to all our scaredy cats and kittens out there, remember, curiosity didn't kill these two scaredy cats.